The corridor of Jefferson Senate Hall wasn't silent. It was holding its breath. 3 cadets cornered an old man, voices sharp, laughter bouncing off polished stone. He didn't answer, didn't look up, just tightened his grip on the broom in his hand. Something about him was wrong, too precise, too steady. Every watcher felt it. This wasn't the stillness of fear. It was the pause before a story the building had forgotten was about to return. One more insult, one more step too far, and everything buried in the past would break loose in front of them. The light shifted across the tiled floor. Time stretched thin. And then, sound traveled too well in Jefferson Senate Hall. Every footstep rang beneath vaulted ceilings. Even whispers became accusations here. 3 cadets strode through the east corridor. Peterson, Clark, and Vance. Uniforms pressed sharp, brass buttons catching afternoon light. They moved with the casual arrogance of men who believed the building recognized their importance. Peterson led with chin lifted, scanning for someone to notice them. Clark adjusted his collar. Vance smirked at a passing clerk and kept walking. They had an hour before afternoon drills. Enough time to make an impression. At the corridor's end, an old janitor worked alone. Samuel Carter, 79 years old, frame lean and wiry, gray work shirt hung loose on his shoulders. Sleeves rolled above thin forearms. His movements were methodical. Turn, sweep, collect, repeat. Peterson spotted him first. "Hey, someone bring their grandpa to work." Clark chuckled. Vance joined in, amused. Samuel didn't look up. The bristles scraped stone with rhythmic consistency. Dust gathered in neat lines at his feet. That indifference only drew them closer. Peterson stepped into the broom's path. The wooden handle bumped his polished boot. "I'm talking to you, old man. You forget your hearing aid." Samuel raised his eyes, pale blue, calm, empty of fear or anger. He said nothing. Clark leaned in, grinning. "Stand tall when future officers address you." His voice was mocking, loud enough to carry. A few staffers passed by, eyes flicking toward the scene before quickly looking away. No one interfered with cadets in uniform, but one person stopped. Emily Rowan, legislative aide, 25, held a folder of briefing papers. She froze halfway down the hall. 3 young men in uniform, circling an elderly janitor who refused to flinch. Their jokes weren't funny, they were cruel. Emily's chest tightened. Her grandfather had been Korea, winter of '52. He never talked about it much, but his hands told stories his mouth wouldn't. The way this janitor stood, contained, deliberate, looked too familiar. Peterson kicked the broom aside. The neat pile of dust scattered across polished stone. Laughter followed, sharp and hollow. Samuel bent slowly, retrieved the broom, and resumed sweeping. No protest. No anger. Just motion. "Your job," Clark sneered, "is to stay invisible," Vance added. Bet he never served a day in his life. Their voices carried like blades. Emily's pulse quickened. Something about the old man's posture felt off. Not frail, trained. The way he held the broom handle too familiar, too exact, like muscle memory from another life. Peterson stepped closer, crowding Samuel's space. "You better show some respect to this uniform." He tapped his own chest, emphasizing the brass insignia. Samuel's voice came low, gravelly. "Just doing my job, son." The calmness was like a slap. It wasn't submission, it was discipline measured, immovable. Peterson's face flushed. He grabbed the broom handle and shoved it hard. Wood struck the wall with a hollow crack. The sound cut through the corridor like a gunshot. Conversations died. Even the hum of fluorescent lights seemed to fade. Samuel straightened. Not dramatically, not with visible effort, but his spine aligned with quiet precision, vertebrae stacking into perfect posture. His gaze locked on Peterson. It wasn't rage. It wasn't defiance. It was assessment. Emily's breath caught. For a split second, she didn't see a janitor. She saw a soldier. Peterson tried to recover the upper hand. "You think you're in charge here, Pops?" His words rang louder than he meant them to. The air thickened. Distant sounds, footsteps, phones ringing. Ventilation faded into background static. Only the echo of the broom striking the wall remained, lingering like smoke. Samuel didn't step back, didn't blink. His grip on the broom handle shifted slightly. For just a flash, it resembled something else entirely. A rifle stock. A weapon carried too long. Emily felt it in her chest, a cold certainty. This man wasn't ordinary. Whatever the cadets thought they were doing, they were standing on ground they didn't understand. Clark muttered to Vance, "What's with him?" Vance shrugged, unease creeping in. Even their laughter faltered. Peterson drew breath for another insult. But Samuel's eyes hadn't wavered. They carried weight the cadets couldn't name. Storms already weathered. Tests they would never face. Emily gripped her folder tighter. She couldn't explain the knot in her stomach. But she knew with absolute certainty that whatever happened next would matter. The corridor seemed to shrink around them. 3 cadets, 1 old man, and the air between them, charged and waiting. Samuel stood framed by columns, dust at his feet, the broom steady in his grasp. He wasn't waiting for permission. He was waiting for something else entirely. Peterson's smirk hardened into something meaner. He jabbed a finger toward Samuel's chest. "What's that supposed to be, old man? A souvenir from the flea market?" A small silver star pinned above Samuel's pocket caught the light. Its edges were worn smooth by decades. The ribbon faded to pale gray. To them, it looked cheap, theatrical. Clark snorted. "Come on, that can't be real." Vance leaned in. "Maybe it came with the uniform discount." Their laughter bounced once, then died against stone. Samuel didn't speak. He brushed a thumb over the star, barely touching it. For a heartbeat, his mind went somewhere else entirely. The corridor faded. The smell of dust turned to smoke and iron. Rain hammered against his memory like a drum. Vietnam. 1969. Blackstone Ridge. Mud to his knees. Sky burning orange through monsoon clouds. Mortar fire chewing up the earth ahead. He was 31 then, Staff Sergeant, Charlie Platoon. 12 men holding a ridgeline against an NVA force that outnumbered them 20-1. The radio crackled. "Charlie 27, fall back. You're surrounded." Lieutenant Harper's voice came back steady despite the chaos. "Negative. We hold Blackstone Ridge." Samuel remembered every face. Corporal Hale, 22, from Tennessee. Manning the M60 with white knuckles. Private Nguyen, interpreter. Half his jaw gone but still relaying coordinates. Jackson, the youngest 19, firing blind through tears. Below them, Alpha Company was pinned 40 men with nowhere to run. If the ridge fell, so did they. Samuel crawled through mud to Hale, dragging him by his harness. Shrapnel had torn both legs. Hale screamed until his voice broke. "Leave me, Sarge." Samuel didn't answer, just pulled, inch by inch, while rounds snapped past his head. A Huey roared overhead, rotors cutting rain into mist. "Room for 6. The pilot shouted through the headset. 6 out of 12. Samuel looked at his platoon, faces ghost white, hands shaking. He made the call. "Wounded first. Everyone else stays till the last lift." Harper grabbed his shoulder. "Carter, you're hit." Samuel didn't look back. "So's everyone else." 3 runs. 3 eternities through mud and gunfire. By the last, only 4 were left standing. Samuel loaded Harper unconscious now, chest torn open into the helicopter. The crew chief screamed, "That's it. We're overloaded." Samuel jumped clear, watched it disappear into smoke, then turned back to the ridge. 3 men left. Hale, Nguyen, Jackson. They looked at him with eyes that knew. Samuel checked his magazine. 17 rounds. He smiled, grim, feral. "Guess we stay for dinner." They held 40 more minutes. When reinforcements finally punched through, 4 men were alive. The NVA had stopped counting their own dead. Present. Jefferson Senate Hall. Samuel blinked against fluorescent glare. His hand still rested on the silver star. Peterson's fingers were inches from it, about to tear the ribbon free. Emily's hands moved on instinct, phone out. Searching. Samuel Carter. Silver Star. Blackstone Ridge. Results flooded her screen. Newspaper clippings from 1970. Digitized military citations. A black and white photo. Younger Samuel, dirt-caked, 1,000-yard stare. Caption. Staff Sergeant Samuel J. Carter, Charlie Platoon, awarded Silver Star for actions at Blackstone Ridge, 1969. Her throat went dry. She clicked deeper. Maintained position with decimated platoon against superior enemy forces. Personally evacuated 8 wounded under sustained fire. Refused medical extraction until all personnel accounted for. Exemplary conduct beyond duty. She read it twice, then looked up. Peterson was still reaching for the star. He thought it was fake. At the corridor's far end, Sergeant O'Donnell's security detail, Iraq veteran, went rigid. He'd been watching with growing discomfort. Now his jaw clenched. He knew that posture. He'd seen it in men who'd survived what broke others. Samuel's grip on the broom handle tightened. His breathing slowed 4 counts in, 4 counts out. Tactical breathing. Muscle memory. Clark stepped forward. "Show us you're a real soldier then." Vance's grin wavered. "Yeah, prove it." Their words fell flat. Even they could feel the current change. Samuel didn't blink. His eyes carried too much weight. Ghosts the cadets would never see. Emily stared at her screen. 12 men. 200 enemy. No retreat. She whispered, voice lost in the vast space. "It's real." O'Donnell's hand moved to his radio. His eyes never left Samuel. The tension coiled tighter. Peterson drew breath, preparing to escalate. Then footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, carrying decades of authority. Every head turned. The air changed. From the main rotunda, Colonel Marcus Reed stepped into view. Dark uniform pressed sharp, ribbons catching light. His eyes swept the scene, locking instantly on the old man with the broom. And in that moment, Emily saw Samuel's posture shift. Not submission. Recognition. His voice came so low only she heard it. "Ridge 27. The words weren't for them. They were memory-made sound. And just like that, the past was no longer buried. Colonel Marcus Reed stepped into the corridor like weather rolling in. Dark uniform pressed to perfection, medals arranged in precise rows. 2 aides flanked him, but his presence dwarfed theirs. He was 63, airborne, 2 wars, 3 decades of command. He'd walked through enough battlefields to recognize one even dressed in marble. 3 cadets surrounding an old man. The old man holding a broom like it was something else entirely. Reed's eyes narrowed. He caught sight of the silver star pinned to the janitor's chest. Recognition flickered across his face. Peterson was still talking, voice carrying down the hall. "Show some respect to the uniform, fossil." Reed stopped mid-stride. He recognized that stance instantly, weight-centered, shoulders squared, eyes forward. Not a janitor's body language, a soldier's. And not just any soldier. A name from an old debrief surfaced in his mind. Carter, Ridge 27, Blackstone. He'd read the report as a lieutenant. Every young officer had. The impossible defense that shouldn't have succeeded. Reed's voice thundered across the hall. "Ridge 27, stand fast." The command hit like a detonation. Samuel reacted before thought could catch up. The broom clattered to the floor. His body snapped to attention, with a speed that defied every one of his 79 years. Heels clicked together with parade ground precision. Shoulders locked back, eyes fixed forward, unblinking. The transformation was absolute. The corridor gasped. Staffers froze mid-step. Emily's phone nearly slipped from her hand. O'Donnell snapped to his own attention stance without thinking. The cadets stumbled backward, faces draining. Reed's throat constricted. He'd been half guessing. Now he knew. He walked forward slowly, boots measured against stone. His eyes never left Samuel. Staff Sergeant Samuel J. Carter. His voice roughened with emotion. "I thought you were gone." Samuel's reply came steady, graveled. "Still here, sir." For a moment, nothing moved. Time folded the old soldier, the officer who'd read about him, the witnesses who didn't understand what they were seeing. Reed stopped within arm's reach. "Why didn't you tell anyone who you were?" "Wasn't asked, sir." The colonel swallowed hard. He turned slowly toward the cadets. His gaze was molten. "Do you have any idea?" His voice cracked, then steadied. "Any idea who you just disrespected?" Peterson's mouth opened. Nothing came. Clark had gone pale. Vance looked at his boots. Reed's voice rose, filling the corridor. This man held Blackstone Ridge with 12 soldiers. He let that number hang. Against a reinforced NVA company. Over 200 enemy combatants. Staffers edged closer, drawn by the gravity in his voice. They were ordered to fall back. Reed's words came faster now, each one a hammer blow. They refused. Alpha Company was pinned in the valley below 40 men with no cover. If that ridge fell, they died. All of them. Emily's eyes blurred. Samuel remained locked at attention, face betraying nothing. Reed continued, relentless. Sergeant Carter carried 8 wounded across open ground, under sustained fire. He was hit twice and kept moving. The medevac had room for half his platoon. He put every wounded man on that helicopter before himself. The colonel's voice dropped, harder now, then went back to the ridge. Held it with 3 other men for 40 more minutes against an enemy force that should have overrun them in 5. Silence. Absolute silence. 4 men walked off that ridge alive, 4 out of 12. Alpha Company, all 40 made it out because of them. Reed's gaze swung back to the cadets like a weapon. "You mocked him. You kicked his broom. You called his service fake." His voice turned to ice. You dare stand there in those uniforms men like him earned for you, and disrespect him. Peterson's hands trembled. Sir, we didn't know. You didn't ask. Reed's roar echoed. You saw an old man and assumed weakness. You saw a janitor and assumed irrelevance. He stepped closer, voice dropping to something more dangerous than shouting. Heroes don't wear signs. They don't announce themselves. They sweep floors and keep quiet because humility is what real service taught them. No one moved. Even the aides stood frozen. Reed exhaled slowly. Then, turning back to Samuel, he softened. You shouldn't be sweeping floors, Sergeant. Samuel's gaze flickered for the first time. Every place needs cleaning, sir. A pause. It's honest work. Reed's jaw tightened. He nodded once, an unspoken salute between men who understood. Then he faced the crowd. This man is why you wear your uniforms in peace, not in war. Why your parents sleep without hearing mortars. And he's here, sweeping your floors. Emily's eyes stung. Her camera kept rolling. Reed straightened. Cadets, attention. They obeyed, spines rigid, faces drained. Salute Sergeant Carter, now. Their arms rose awkward, trembling, but they held. O'Donnell joined them, his salute crisp and precise. Even a few civilians tried, hands to their hearts. Samuel didn't move. He didn't acknowledge the salutes. Didn't need to. The moment stretched long and heavy. Reed's voice came softer now, almost a whisper. You carried that ridge, Sergeant. You carried all of us. Samuel's response was quiet, nearly lost in the hush. Just did what needed doing, sir. Reed gave a small nod. Not approval, respect. The kind that can't be spoken aloud. O'Donnell stepped forward. He raised his salute again, voice thick. Honor to serve near you, sir. Samuel turned his head slightly. A ghost of a nod. Nothing more. Emily blinked hard, chest tight. History standing right in front of her. Breathing. Humble. Alive. The tension that had gripped the hall dissolved into reverent quiet. Colonel Reed turned toward the rest of them. Remember this moment. You just met the cost of your comfort. He looked back once more at Samuel Carter. The janitor. The soldier. The man who never stopped serving. Reed held his salute a moment longer, then lowered his hand. At ease, Sergeant. Samuel's shoulders eased incrementally. His posture relaxed but kept its dignity. He looked smaller now, yet somehow taller than anyone in the room. Reed turned to the cadets. They still stood rigid, eyes fixed on the floor. Sweat shone at their temples. Drop your salutes, Reed ordered, voice cooled from fury to disappointment. Report to your commanding officer. Explain what happened here. Every word. Peterson swallowed hard. Yes, sir. Clark and Vance echoed him, voices hollow. Dismissed. They walked away stiffly, boots hitting stone in uneasy rhythm. The sound faded into distance. None of them looked back. Reed watched until they disappeared, then turned to Samuel, expression softening into quiet sorrow. You deserved better than this. Samuel shook his head slowly. I got what I needed, sir. My men came home. Most of them. The words landed like stones in still water. Most of them. 8 survived. 4 didn't. Names Samuel still carried. Reed's hand remained on his shoulder for another moment, then fell away. This country still owes you. Samuel's answer was almost a whisper. Maybe. But I didn't do it for a debt. He bent down, joints protesting, and retrieved the broom. The handle settled into his palm with familiar ease. With the same methodical precision as before, he began sweeping the scattered dust. The bristles scraped against stone, steady, rhythmic, ordinary. But nothing was ordinary anymore. Staffers parted as he moved down the corridor. Not with pity, with reverence. Each face turned toward him in silent acknowledgement. Emily stood frozen, phone still recording. Her hands shook as she stopped the video. 3 minutes and 40 seconds that might outlive them all. She stared at the file name. Jefferson Hall, Carter. A piece of history, caught by accident. O'Donnell remained at attention until Samuel passed, then relaxed, exhaling slowly. Their eyes met for an instant, a soldier's nod. Mutual recognition. Emily approached the guard station once the hall began to empty. That footage, she said quietly. Should people see it? O'Donnell thought before answering. With his permission. Only then. You think he'll say yes? He was quiet for a moment. Men like that don't chase credit. But maybe he'd want the others remembered, the ones still on that ridge. Emily looked down at her phone. The thumbnail showed the old man at attention, frozen in time. It didn't look like footage. It looked like testimony. Reed was still standing near the center of the hall, lost in thought. One aide stepped forward. Sir, your briefing can wait, Reed said simply. He watched Samuel disappear into the far wing, Broom moving in even strokes. The colonel's voice dropped to a murmur meant only for himself. Some wars never end. The hall began to breathe again. Phones rang, shoes clicked, conversations returned in muted tones. But nothing felt quite the same. Emily walked toward the east wing. She found Samuel by tall windows, sunlight spilling over tiled floors. He worked slowly, methodically, dust gathering into a single, clean line. The silver star caught the light, a brief flash, gone as fast as it came. He didn't notice. Or maybe he did, and simply kept going. To anyone passing by, he was just a janitor. Quiet. Ordinary. Another shadow moving through the day. But those who had seen what happened would never forget. They'd seen the truth behind the uniform and the broom. They'd seen history disguised as humility. Samuel Carter swept in silence. Each stroke erased the footprints of those who'd walked away in shame. And with every motion, the ghosts of Blackstone Ridge seemed to fade a little. Not gone, but finally at rest.